Okay, this next question sheet comes from Adam Penson or something. Sorry, Jack Bonfield, Joel Kalick, Leo Tabot, Holly Wilson, Charlotte Friedman, and Ross Ryan. Apologies if I got any of those names wrong. I can't read the handwriting very well. Okay, so your first question was, how do you go about enforcing this resource-based economy without a form of currency or political ideology?
Well, there would be no compulsion in this system because it does just make sense. You wouldn't be forced to contribute in the way that our current system forces you to contribute by pulling the rug from underneath you if you don't contribute. If you don't contribute in our current system, you starve. In this system, the reward for your contribution would be the fruits of your own labour. So if you enjoy producing music, produce music. You know, you get to reap the fruits of your own labour and everybody else's. So there's no compulsion in that sense.
Yeah, there's no compulsion, and more to the point, force doesn't even work on a long-term scale. Are you forced to believe, I keep coming back to this example, but are you forced to believe that the world is a sphere? Did someone force you to believe that? You said, well, I believe it's flat. Well, and then they whipped you until you believed it. No, of course not. This is the beauty of science. It's not something that's open to whether you believe it or an ideology or anything else. It just is what it is until new information comes along and updates it. And that's really what we're talking about. A very, very simple system. I actually kind of feel like I was a bit stupid for not thinking of it myself. But anyway, moving on. Surely this would wipe out free will, ambition and individuality. Wiping out free will, there never was such a thing. You are a product of your environment and your conditioning, an interaction between a unique set of genetics that interact in a unique way with your culture and your environment. So the idea that anything in nature acts freely of itself without interaction from anything else seems very odd to me. Seems very, very strange. And our idea and concepts of free will have done hugely damaging things on this planet. Thus is our idea of what it means to actually change human behaviour in terms of punishment in prisons and things, which is well wide of the mark. Basically, with our understandings there. In terms of ambition, in this system, our ambition is aligned with making profit off of depriving people of their life-sustaining resources and essentially profiting off of inefficiencies.
Yeah, most of the people who've made the greatest contributions to our social and our technological world have shown absolutely no monetary incentive to do so. They've done it because they're interested in it and they can understand the benefit of doing so. They can understand that pursuing an idea for its own end can be shown to be better in almost every situation than pursuing it for a monetary reward.
And in fact, there's been a lot of interesting studies done on just that. If you want to reward back-breaking labour, then money is a really excellent idea to do that. You reward it higher, people put in more. But you want to reward creativity, then dangling a carrot in front of someone's nose is the worst thing you could do, because they stop engaging in the task at hand and start thinking about the doggy biscuit or the carrot, so to speak. This has been showed in many, many different experiments. A good book would be Punished by Rewards by Alfie Kohn that goes through this particular phenomenon. And in terms of incentive as well, there's another book by Daniel Pink called Drive that goes through a lot of the information that I don't have time to go through in this video. But putting it simply, Einstein was sitting around in his office one day trying to work out, work out a few things and stuff, and trying to come up with this new theory. And he's like, I just can't quite get my head around it. Someone walks in with an extra 100 quid and said, can you come up with it now? Oh, E equals MC squared. Thanks, man. It's the 20 quid that did it. Just think about that. It's totally illogical. Of course it didn't. So in terms of what we have now, we don't have individuality because you're being coerced all the time into looking a certain way, behaving a certain way to fit in. Why? So that I think there's quite a lack of individuality in our culture, actually. I don't think we have many individuals. Besides, I don't even know what individuality is, because it's really just a product of personal experience and cultural, reinforcement, essentially.
Hmm. Yeah, everyone has a unique experience on this planet, and that experience interacts with, in most cases, their unique set of genetic information. So everyone is unique. I don't really understand individuality.
I mean, it's not a case of, the only uniformity that needs to be is that your planet's, you can't exceed your resources. You have to manage them intelligently. There has to be a understanding of your relationship to the planet you live on and the people who live around you, so that there has to be certain control mechanisms. They're obvious. If you got to a hot frying pan and you stick your hand on it, you get burned. That's a control mechanism. So we're talking about perhaps those sorts of control mechanisms, rather than the control mechanism of, we've got the system set up this way, so to be perfectly honest, even though you don't see the sense of it, get back to work. Well, I don't really want to. Well, then tough, we're not going to supply you with the means to meet your survival. Guess you're dead. Yeah, that to me is more problematic. So moving on, a lot of your ideas are consistent with the ideology of communism. Have we not seen that communism fails in practice? Yes, we have seen that communism fails in practice, because communism is a political ideology. What we are talking about is a technological approach to planetary, social and human well-being. Communism was a political theory.
Yeah, communism wasn't... There are different types of communism, and the communism of one era, as proposed by Marx or Hegel of the 1850s, was a reaction to a society that they anticipated and understood. Now, it means absolutely nothing to use the word communism to describe their political theory in our current economic context, in our current societal framework. It means absolutely nothing. The contexts are completely different. As well as that, communism didn't have any base, or currently doesn't. The political ideology doesn't have any basis in real-world, tangible facts. It doesn't submit to the operational approach. There's no scientific method in communism.
And really, it was initially about freeing up the proletariat, freeing up the workforce. Well, we're talking about, we don't need the workforce because we've got the technology to replace mundane human labour and arbitrary tasks. So this is this is a decision-making process that's based on physical, ground-up, empirical reasoning. It's not based on political ideologies. The only similarity that comes with communism is that we're talking about sharing. Well, capitalism talks about that. Capitalism talks about the idea of people going out after their own self-interest and creating something that people need in an economy, that then the economy can meet its supply and demand through the invisible hand of the market, basically coming to meet supply and demand through price. Well, that's based on labour for income, and that's coming under attack from technological unemployment now. So even capitalism is misrepresented in that sense, actually, that it's not about sharing. Well, it is actually. It's about meeting human needs. So it's still about that. But what we do is, we're not saying that everyone's equal. I'm a drum teacher. I don't know the first thing about brain surgery. Don't put me on brain surgery technical team. I'll mess it up, and I'll mess your brain up. We all have different attributes, and we need a system by which we can come together collaboratively to use our human ingenuity, use our creativity, and use our knowledge and collective wisdom to create a system that meets our needs. That's essentially what this system will enable us to do, through a technological process rather than an ideology.
Yeah. Another example of the difference between an ideology and a real-world approach would be the idea of the class struggle that Marx alluded to. The idea that he saw a struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, the working class and the upper class, or however you want to define that. He saw that in his context, and he made it an absolute law, without reference to any other context, without reference to a different time, a different place. So the idea of a class struggle is a faith position. It's a religious position with no basis in reality.
Of course, which communism are you talking about? Every form of communism was really different. They existed in different times with different leaders, different countries, different aspects to it. They've all been very, very different systems, you know. So, but yeah, I think we've covered that probably quite enough. You talked about mechanized unemployment, so technological unemployment, which is essential for this resource-based economy. So where is employment going to come from? Well, there's not going to be any.
Yeah. If you define employment as labour for income, then no employment. You're not rewarded by receiving money from your work.
We're going towards deliberate mechanisation of human labour with the idea that it's more efficient, it's more productive, it's safer, it frees humanity from laborious tasks. So why the hell wouldn't we use it? Because we've got money. Well, that's just dumb. The one thing that separates us on this planet, and we're going, well, that's why we wouldn't do it. Well, then I'm sorry. That just seems to me to be completely stupid. But so that's the point, I think, covered with technological unemployment. There won't be any employment. You can choose to invest your time and efforts into whatever intrigues you and whatever interests you in life. That's what technology is supposed to be for. To free us up to do the things that we really enjoy and that we really want to pursue. We don't want to slave away washing dishes at the sink till 9 o'clock at night and scrubbing our clothes on a granny board. That's why we've got a dishwasher and a washing machine, and frankly I think it's a good thing. So what's the next one?
In practice, how are you going to bridge the development gap with such huge economic powers like China and the USA? How will you convince them?
I don't think we'll need to convince them too much because of technological unemployment and the other factors we've mentioned in our talk coming to collapse their system intrinsically from the inside. The core mechanism of how they operate is coming to an end anyway. But
also, to who does your question actually refer? You talk about China and the USA, and how will we convince them? Who in the USA? Who in China? Who are we trying to convince? I struggle to understand that question, but the current economic system that we have worldwide will collapse. So we don't need to convince them that it will collapse. We just need to be there to present an alternative when it does.
With regards to yeah, I think we've probably answered that one well enough. Let's move on. What is the incentive for individuals without a currency? Well, I'm not sure if we answered this earlier in this one, but the incentive for Einstein to come up with his theories, Newton to come up with his theories, Nikola Tesla and alike, it wasn't
for the Wright brothers to build a plane.
Wright brothers to build a plane was not finances initially. They may have needed them to have the freedom to carry out the experiments and tests that came up with their contributions, but it wasn't that spurred them on. People invariably who come up with these sorts of things in the initial stages don't earn any money out of it anyway. They do it for the love of it. They're exactly doing it for the one thing that money does not reward very well, and that is intrinsic motivation to actually do what you love. I didn't become a drum teacher, or initially I didn't become a drummer to become a drum teacher. I do drum teaching vastly because it earns money. If I won the lottery tomorrow, not that I play it, obviously, but if I had the freedom to do what I want, I wouldn't turn up for work at Monk's Walk. I'm sorry. Look, this is a teacher saying it. I know probably this is not teacher etiquette to say this on a video, but the fact is neither would your teachers if they're being honest. I mean, some of them would, granted, and I'd love to teach people, but not in the way I'm teaching them at the moment. Not in the way where I'm paid and I have to stay there till a certain time and I have to do this and I have to do that. I'd love to go in a resource-based economy to the centre of my city and work with people, on that basis where they really, really, really want to be there because they really, really want to learn. Then I want to teach them because I love that enthusiasm. It's brilliant. Those are the lessons I enjoy. But the incentive to do these things intrinsically is so much more powerful than what money can do.
Yeah. Do you not remove human nature is the next question. Well, what do you mean by human nature? Do you mean human nature is a predetermined set of behaviors? Because there's no such thing. Human behavior is molded by the environment that they live in, interacting with their predisposition to that environment that's genetically coded. So people like Dr. Robert Sapolsky, Gabor Mate, they can put this better than I can, but there is no such thing as human nature. There's how humans react to environmental stimuli.
Essentially, our nature is that we're not too restricted by our nature, because we're so excellent at adapting to changing circumstances. We provide more living circumstances and social practices and relationship values than any other species on this planet, which demonstrates our ability to be able to collaborate and to be able to adapt to changing circumstances. So if you reinforce a different set of behaviours, you get a different set of behaviours in your system and your environment. Something that's really well pointed out by a book called The Spirit Level, which goes into inequality in different societies and how that has a detrimental effect to all areas of social and human health. So I widely recommend checking that out. But human nature is a huge topic to cover, but if we're all greedy, then you have to explain people like charity workers and monks and people like this. Our human nature, if you had to put one, is okay. Well, we all need food, water, clothing, housing, shelter. We have human needs. Outside of that's the first thing we have to start to address objectively. Now, with regards to human nature as well, because it's such a huge topic, watch at least the first 40 minutes of Zeitgeist Moving Forward, which goes through human nature with a fine-tooth comb, and really puts that one in the bag. So basically, let's move on. Where are we now?
Where does religion and or free thinking fit into this? Well, we've addressed this in an earlier video, but when religion makes claims about the real-world, tangible, operational events that are common to all of humanity and all of reality, those claims should be subject to empirical test. And if they bear fruit, if they are positive things for human development and allow us to survive and be happy, then absolutely fine. But if they're harmful to human health and harmful to survival and harmful to psychological well-being, then unfortunately that's not exempt from test either. So where does religion and or free thinking fit into this? You have the capacity to believe whatever you want to believe. You've got the ability to do it. But when it starts making claims about the real-world operation...
And when it starts having a detrimental effect on those, your fellow human beings around you,
I think
it becomes problematic. Religion has had a good whack of the stick at this, of bringing about this brotherhood of man. It's not going to happen, because you're instantly setting a divisionary notion between you and your fellow humans with such ideologies. The point is you can believe whatever you want. Why... until it starts to have a negative retroaction on your planet, the resources on it, and the people you share those resources with.
And fundamentally, I think extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and I haven't seen any extraordinary evidence.
But that being the case, what our opinions are about religion are irrelevant. What is relevant is what decision-making method can we actually put into practice to realise these higher callings that a lot of people have with regards to religion and faith and spirituality and all of these different concepts that people talk about, these higher order abstractions. How can we actually have a decision-making method that's not subject to interpretation, but that we can use to reach these higher goals, these higher premises? It's staring us in the face. It has to be the best one we've ever known of to garner an understanding of the physical nature of reality that we all share, and that's the scientific method. It's the only one standing in the room that people are going to be able to use, whether they're Muslim or Christian or anything else. Because if you send blueprints from, let's say, a Christian church who built a bridge outside their church for some reason to a mosque, they also need to build just the same sort of bridge. There's no misinterpretation there. But you send the Bible over, to the mosque, and they send the Quran over to you, and you go, oh no, and you're going to have a great big ding dong, about the whole thing, because it's subject to interpretation. People in a resource-based economy can believe whatever they want, and in terms of believing in your religion and going to church, fill your boots. That's what a resource-based economy is all about. You do what you like, but instead of praying for world peace, instead of praying to solve poverty, and instead of praying to feed people, we're going to do it. Now, you can either join us and make heaven on earth, right, or you can carry on staying on your knees and thinking it's going to happen. But you've done that for 2,000 years, so I'd suggest it's probably not going to happen. I think it's time to practice what you preach. Cool. So, is that the end of this?
That was the end, yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for this. If you want to check out any more details, if we didn't answer your question well enough or anything, apologies for that, but you can find more information at the website at www.thezeitgeistmovement.com. Cheers, guys.